You're listening to episode 94, Moira's story, Kids with Celiac Disease and Migraines. Hello, my friends. I'm so glad that you're here today. Today, I get to introduce you to Moira, and she is the owner of Surviving the Waiting Room, which is another podcast, but it comes basically from her experiences of learning how to be an advocate for her teenage kiddos as they started to figure out that they had some health issues going on, and it wasn't always clear cut. There weren't always direct answers. They have diagnoses now that there's still no exact testing for, so she's gotten really good at finding people to help give her information. She's gotten really good at learning how to advocate and ask questions, and she is just constantly bringing experts together. So she offers a lot of value, and she does all of this while still being a mom. So I want to quickly get to her story because I think she's got a lot of important things to say when it comes to, just trying to figure out what's going on and try to find answers, and then also how to relate to teenagers and how to support them as they grow into being young adults. All right, let's get started. So why don't you start off and talk a bit about yourself and just kind of introduce yourself and tell me about your family and a bit about Moira, a bit about you.
Yeah. So, my gosh, how to start off. I was one of those people that I never thought I was going to have kids. I was perfectly happy if I met somebody that we were going to get married and I didn't need kids. And we had a whirlwind romance. Like literally, my husband and I met each other, and within 10 months, we were engaged, and we were just each other's best friends, like immediately. So we decided, like, okay, well, we should slow it down. And we waited about 3 years before we even tried to have kids. By now, like we're in our late 20s, early 30s, and we couldn't. So we tried for a long time, and then we finally went the IVF route, and we had success. We had our first daughter, and then we had a miscarriage, and then we had our second daughter, and everything seemed normal for them. They were very articulate at a young age. They were overachievers in every way, happy kids. But then, things started happening that were strange. And it really happened to our oldest, really. And you always start questioning yourself, like, am I just saying this because it's my first child? I don't really
Right.
know. And you talk to your family members and they blow you off and they try to relax you and not worry you.
Mm-hmm.
But she threw her back out for the first time when she was 7 years old. And she threw it out by standing up from sitting crisscross. So, which was very bizarre.
Yeah.
So we've been going to a chiropractor since she was 7 years old. Then around the same time, she was having a lot of stomach issues. And I always had stomach issues. I have a blog post about it. But basically, when we went to the doctor had blown me off for 38 years. They blew my daughter off. They're like, well, fine, we'll put you on an elimination diet, but we really think you're just overreacting to this whole thing. Well, long story short, she had celiac disease. And then we found out after 38 years that I had celiac disease.
Oh, wow.
So, then you just get used to, okay, well, how do we eat different? And I think that was my first experience with grieving the loss of something, like grieving donuts, grieving,
Yeah.
going to a supermarket and just like easily picking off anything we wanted. Um, And I can remember just standing in the aisle, just crying and calling my husband, like, I can't go grocery shopping anymore. Like, you
Yeah.
have to do this.
Oh.
So from there, it was like little things. Like I said, like these were nothing big. It was just always small. There were always a dislocation through elementary school. They were always getting, shin splints or Seaver's disease or some odd thing, but just enough that the pediatrician always thought, oh, they're just those kids. They're just the kids that get hurt. My daughter's name is Molly, and the family always joked medical Molly because something was, we have every single durable medical equipment in our house. We've got crutches and boots and scooters and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then puberty hit. And it was funny because I was listening to one of your other podcasts recently, and they said when their kids were in middle school, that's when things started to happen.
Mm.
And the same thing really happened to us. That was when things happened that the doctors couldn't ignore anymore.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, I really see the trigger was probably the body's going through puberty.
Mm.
And the first one was anxiety, like severe anxiety, to the point that it was panic attacks and anxiety attacks. She wouldn't be able to speak. She would create such a stutter that she couldn't stop. So we actually learned to start texting each other. So she couldn't talk when she was going through these things. So she would use text to talk. So we would lay in bed and talk to each other. And then my youngest daughter, then she got to middle school and then she started having these crazy migraines for no reason. And she has a super high tolerance for pain, which is interesting because the doctors always say, like, if it was anybody else, they would probably be in the hospital nonstop. But since she's such a high tolerance for pain, they had tried every single treatment possible. And the poor thing, over the years, we, did the infusions, we did the acupuncture, we tried every single medication, every type of Western and Eastern medicine that was out there, and we've never found a solution for it. So it was interesting. Like, we would get the anxiety under control and then the migraines would pop up. So they were very nice to us in the beginning.
Yeah.
That, one child would need us and then the other child would, like, first it was celiac and then it was this and then it was that. And then high school really came. And it was, I think, my husband, I should take one step back and say, when we see the anxiety and when we see the migraines and we see how it's debilitating to them, how they weren't able to, go sleepovers, they weren't able to go away because they would have an anxiety attack or they would have a migraine or they would just be catatonic in some ways. And my husband and I would always have the opinion of, it's our job to make them well enough to live on their own. Like, these are very bright girls. They have no issues at the time cognitively, and we always saw, like, a really bright future for them if we could only get past this hurdle. And that held us, that faith in that we just need to get past this hurdle. We can find a solution. We'll come. And then my oldest daughter started, it was the summer before her senior year of high school. So she's supposed to have the time of her life. She's getting ready for college. She's putting in applications. And she was at rehearsal and she fell like a rag doll and she never got back up. And I told that story a number of times and it chokes me up every time. So the first day, again, like, I really try not to get upset about things. I try not to worry too much. I feel that things will always work themselves out.
Yeah.
And so the next day, she went back to rehearsal again. And this time, like, she was in a wheelie chair, like they put her in a chair and just wheeled her around because we felt like, okay, this is just some weird thing, like a virus or something, and it will eventually go away.
Yeah.
Because it's out of the blue. And then by the third day when it didn't, I have a 3-day rule. If it's not better in 3 days, we go to the doctor.
Yeah.
So we went to the doctor, the same pediatrician that she had with celiac disease. I should have kind of known better. And she's like, I don't know what it is. I have no idea. So she ran a bunch of tests and everything came back normal. And then she's like, all I can tell you is that I think it's all psychosomatic. And I was like, how could she be perfectly happy and normal on one day and unable to function? Like, every muscle in her body is limp.
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? And she's like, I don't know. You need to go see a therapist. So she went to the therapist. She actually was already seeing one because of her anxiety. And the therapist was like, oh, this is a really serious one because she's not acknowledging it. I forget what it's called. It's like when you separate yourself from reality. And I was like, I don't think that's true. Like, how is she perfectly fine? And then this happens. So we went through months of tests. We went to the cardiologist because then she got other symptoms. She was having heart murmurs. She lost feeling in 90% of her skin. So she was afraid to take showers or take baths because she was afraid of burning.
Oh.
She she lost all cognitive ability. She couldn't talk. She couldn't open her eyes. She couldn't think. It was, it was shocking. There's really no other way to say it. And then she would be fine for a week. And we'd be like, okay, we're over the hurdle. And then it would come back with a vengeance. And, good news, bad news, we had to change insurance companies. And I had to start from scratch to find a new pediatrician. And I found this wonderful pediatrician who happened to be a geneticist. And we showed up in her office and she looked at both of my daughters. They went in at the same time. And she said, "You two aren't special. I see you girls every day."
Aww.
And for the first time, all three of us felt like we'd been heard.
Yeah.
So she said, "Okay, we're going to figure this out." So we went through all the tests again, and she still couldn't figure it out. But she was the only doctor who was like, "You're absolutely right. This is not psychosomatic. This is not self-induced." So together we started researching, all these deficiencies, and we would look and we would research. And I'd really gotten into researching all the different things at this point in time.
Which makes a lot of sense, because when you're at a loss, you just want answers. You want to hear what other people have gone through. You want to see what's been done, because you have to be the advocate if nobody else is going to do it.
Exactly, especially if the doctors weren't. So
Yeah.
I would literally find a test result and I would Google test result saying this means what.
Yeah.
And that's why I started like figuring things out. And finally I came across ME/CFS, or chronic fatigue syndrome. And I learned that it was different than just plain chronic fatigue. And I presented it to the doctor at 3 months into this issue beginning. And she's like, "Well, technically we cannot diagnose her for 6 months. She has to have it for 6 months first." I said, "This is her senior year of high school. Like, she needs a 504 plan. She needs empathy, not sympathy, but empathy. She needs to be able to participate." So she was willing to at least diagnose, like preliminary diagnosis of ME/CFS. And that's what my daughter turned out to have.
So what
it was a blessing.
Sorry to interrupt you. What are the kinds of tests that she had to go through to get that diagnosis? Is it blood tests, MRI, EEG? What is that?
See, and that's the crazy thing. There is no definitive test that will say that this is what you have.
Right.
So everything comes back normal.
Yeah.
So we even had, oh my gosh, these women down here. So we live in the South. We live in Georgia. And we would go back to LabCorp every day, and they would take 10 vials at a time from my daughter. It got to the point where these women were praying over my daughter's blood so that they could get an answer. I mean, like, it was amazing. Like, they're you have to, and they would start praying. And my daughter just felt so heard and so loved that these people would be willing to help her.
How did your daughter handle getting an answer, or kind of getting that preliminary diagnosis?
I think, if I remember correctly, she said it was basically like, you can call it, label it, whatever you want.
Yeah.
By that point, she had already requested that she have a wheelchair so she could go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my issues that I needed to get over.
Yeah.
That she's sick enough.
Yeah.
That's for other people. And I finally came to the grips that she's partially disabled.
Yeah. Because
literally most days most days she's fine, but there were days that she was bedridden for a long time.
Yeah. It's that invisible illness, right? That you can't see outwardly.
Yes.
But it doesn't make it any less real. It's just that you can't physically see it.
Yeah. And that's it. Both of my daughters have invisible illnesses. And I didn't even know of that term until the last year.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, because you see other people that have conditions that are profound or very visible. And not that you want to compare yourselves to them, but you're like, I'm going through something too, like dealing with your own stuff and wondering how they've managed going through their stuff. And it seems very different, but at the same time, I think any parent, any caregiver goes through those same emotions of getting the diagnosis and how are you going to do it. And we came to the point where we're very much fighters. So my daughter really wants to be involved in international law. And I was like, well, how can she do that if she's got chronic fatigue syndrome? Like, she can't even walk down the street. How can she use a wheelchair? And so eventually I found the support groups online for all of my daughter's conditions. And they led me to chronic fatigue doctors. And there's only a few specialists in the United States that specialize in it. So we found one in New York City, and she got Molly on the correct medications and supplements. And within a month, my daughter was able to walk down to her graduation in 90-degree weather.
We'll be right back. We are sponsored by Magic Mind, which is the world's first productivity drink. And if y'all have been following along with me for a while, you know I rely heavily on caffeine, especially that 2 p.m. coffee, to help me be productive when I'm working on Child Life on Call or podcasting or being a mom. But that inevitable crash happens, and so I've been looking for something to help me be more productive without all the caffeine. James Bashara, who's the creator of Magic Mind, had a similar issue. His doctor made him give up caffeine because of a heart condition. So he worked to put all of these ingredients together with food scientists and physicians and to come together with Magic Mind. I take it after I drink my coffee in the morning, and it helps make me feel productive for the rest of the day. So for Child Life on Call listeners, if you go to magicmind.co/childlifeoncall, you enter code childlifeoncall20, you get 20% off your order. So magicmind.co/childlifeoncall, enter childlifeoncall20, and you get 20% off your order. I truly hope you enjoy the benefits of this like I did. Go to magicmind.co/childlifeoncall. So what are the treatment plans for chronic fatigue? And I imagine it's a spectrum, right? Like some people will have severe case, some people will have less severe case. What was her treatment like?
Yeah. My daughter really has mild to moderate chronic fatigue. So in the very beginning, she had some severe days, but generally it was mild to moderate. And the specialist was able to determine that it was caused by a virus. So once they found out it was the virus, then they could start giving her super high doses of medications to not so much kill the virus again, but just kind of make it more dormant. She can never get rid of it. It's just dormant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. How does she do with taking the medication? I assume if it makes her feel better, she's up for it, or it's hard to have a compliant teenager, I imagine.
There you go. At one time, she was taking 20 pills 3 times a day.
Oh my gosh.
And that lasted until she went away to college.
Yeah.
Well, because I couldn't see the pill case. So she basically lied to me, and she had a huge relapse in school, and then she learned to take her medications again. And now she seems to really just take medications that apply to what symptoms are manifesting on certain days. So I always forget how to say this. So she's got 4 or 5 other conditions that are comorbidities of chronic fatigue syndrome. So she has mast cell activation, she has fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's, and Sjogren's, and endometriosis. So for her, I'm sure she would do really well if she kept taking the medications for chronic fatigue syndrome. But currently, the other conditions are worse right now, the other symptoms.
I would love your perspective on, it's not like your kids are little and you can dictate when they go to the doctor and do what they should to take care of themselves. How have you processed that watching your children grow up?
I had an epiphany one day. So I do a lot of meditating, and meditating to me helps me just process all of those crazy thoughts and things that during the week I push aside. So on Saturday mornings, usually it's a really long meditation. Like I'll just sit in the chair like for an hour and a half and just process everything. And I realized that my teenage daughters are normal, which is a blessing and a curse. They're completely normal, because if they were regular teenagers that had no issues whatsoever, they would be doing whatever they wanted anyway. And why would I think that they'd be special just because they have conditions? So that actually gave me like a chuckle
Yeah.
that just like we have to teach them how to, do their laundry and do things from the house so they can be self-sufficient adults, they have to learn their lessons.
Mm-hmm.
So when she went off to school, I think she learned a really big lesson that this is going to happen and you're away from mom and dad. And your first instinct should not always be to go to the hospital. Like you have to take care of yourself. So you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely, because I think what you said, it's a process of understanding your role and how that changes when your child grows up. I mean, it's I see it a lot in the hospital with these chronic kids that have chronic, invisible, sometimes illnesses, and there's that whole process of taking on the care of themselves. And it's a whole other component to being someone who deals with illness. It's a lot to carry.
Yeah. And I do think, as you're saying, that I do see the difference too. So my younger daughter, she's just younger when everything was found out. So they also have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. That was really what was the underlying issue when they were in elementary school.
So what is that?
That super flexible.
Okay.
And it's a hereditary genetic disorder. Okay. So we would always complain to the doctors, not so much complain, but bring these like oddities up to them. Like my daughter walks on the tops, like the backs of her feet, like upside down, like normally. And she can do this. And they're like, oh, those are just tricks that they can do. And I'm like,
oh, okay.
It's not like now that we know, like they weren't just tricks, like those were warning signs. They always have my daughter's joints are always killing them. That's just not how they are. Yeah. So everything always got written off. But anyway, my younger daughter, because she was younger when she was diagnosed with the migraines and with everything else, she knows that physical therapy works. She knows that if she does the routines that she should for her migraines, she's very aware of taking medications and taking care of herself. Whereas our older one, she only needed to take care of her anxiety. She never needed to take care of her medical side until literally she was leaving for college. Right. So we never had a chance to help her get into that, that rhythm and know when things go bad and when she needs to do that. So I do think that there's an age difference issue as well, like when you start noticing things.
Oh, yeah, I agree. You've mentioned meditation. How else do you handle your self-care routine? How do you take care of yourself as their mom?
Yeah. It was interesting. Again, I was listening to one of your other podcasts and a while ago, I forget who it was. And she said like she handled her own stuff before she could handle her kids' stuff. And just before all this broke loose with our kids, I had actually trained as a coach, and I was coaching people and a Reiki master. Okay. And those two skills just helped me so much. It helped to keep the communication with my girls open and with my husband open. And the Reiki side, if you don't know what it is energy healing. So it's like that human touch, that human contact. So once I learned it for myself, it really works about balancing out your system. So releasing the extras, releasing the toxins, and purposely bringing in healing and balancing the situation. So I practice it every day, like 20 minutes in the morning. Like that's my meditation.
I love that.
It's really simple. Like I said, on Saturdays, I do it much longer. And then it's actually helped my girls because they feel the difference. So they don't ask for it so much anymore because they're getting older, but they always asked, I'm having a rough day. Can you sit down and give me Reiki? And we would just sit in front of the TV and they would watch TV and I would just give it to them. And you could just feel the anxiety in them. So when you're giving Reiki to somebody else, it actually flows through you and into them, but it's them that's drawing it through you.
Oh, wow.
So you can really feel how much balance they need in their body. If it's really off, like if they're having a high anxiety day, you could definitely feel it. When my daughter's joints are hurting, like my hands would get really warm. But to them, it's such a calming, relaxing moment that they just love it.
Well, and it's that connection.
Yeah.
right? It's that connection that you're able to have. I, I can imagine having a teenager or a middle schooler, there's not a lot of time for connection because they're so busy building their social circles. So
Yeah.
whatever you're able to do, and then you have this positive training on your side to make it even more impactful is really neat.
Yeah. Yeah. If I don't know what I would have done if this had happened before I had all that training, like,
Mm.
because I'm a different person now than I was before.
Yeah. Yeah. How so?
Oh my gosh. I used to be the most controlling person. I had a lot of anger inside of me still.
Yeah.
I had a lot of things that I needed to get over from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's about it. That's all I'm going to say on that topic. But,
Yeah.
every parent does the best they can, and every child interprets it differently. So even if I'm perfect today,
Ugh,
I know for a fact my kids do not interpret it that way.
yes.
So I have a little bit of grace, but
Yeah.
I needed to get over some of the things and get through some of the things that I had experienced as a child. And it's been great because now I can help my kids with their
Oh,
issues.
absolutely. What would you say are some of the things your daughters have taught you since watching them go through some of their medical challenges?
Yeah. Um, one thing that always like comes right to my mind is to believe.
Mm,
We were just talking about the invisible issues, the invisible conditions and symptoms, and they're so easily written off
they
by
are.
so many professionals, let alone um, just ordinary people in the world. And to believe that they're true and they're experiencing them, that's true for them. And if it's true enough for them, then it's something that we need to take care of. We need to look into.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
In the hospital, when you can't find that definitive reason or that lab test or something that shows exactly what it is that you're chasing, that doesn't mean that it's not happening. And it's not,
Exactly.
so regardless of why you think they may not have pain, they do have pain, and so you have to look at that and treat the whole person top to bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like in past generations, other things were going on so much that I think they tried to quiet the kids, and so they try to explain that, oh, you're just making it up. Like I
Yeah.
hate that phrase. Like,
Yeah.
oh, they're just exaggerating. Like
Yeah.
who cares if they are?
Yeah.
Um and I had literally my own little epiphany before my daughter was diagnosed with celiac disease now. My gosh, how many years ago? Like 10, 12 years ago now. I was sitting on her bed and I don't know if I verbalized it or not. I honestly can't remember. But I was like, I've been sucking it up for 38 years. You
Yeah.
can too.
Yeah.
And it was like that moment of, oh my gosh, why should she have to? Like, what have I
Right.
been doing for 38 years?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so true. My friend Jamie, who's been on the podcast, I think was episode 6 or 7. She had a cardiac defect and she was 9 months in the cardiologist appointment and she kept passing out. And they said, well, she's probably just a dramatic baby. It's like,
Yes, because
what?
at 9 months, you know how to be a dramatic baby.
What? So,
Oh my gosh.
it's regardless of whether or not you 100% understand the reason and the science behind it happening, it is happening. And,
Yeah.
there's so much that we just need to believe in our culture, from past experiences and the way we feel about things. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you for
Hmm.
saying that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's definitely one of those hurdles that I had to get
Yeah.
over and
Yeah.
retrain myself. Not just put in that. I think somebody put it in right of it's like when you had the old VHS H test tape
Yeah.
that you would put it in, right? Because you didn't have one have to think.
Yeah.
And I try to question myself now. Is that really what I believe? Is that really what's going on?
Right.
Um, Again, just using those coaching skills on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, if people want to connect with you and learn more and kind of get involved with all that you have to offer, how can they do that?
Sure. I make it really simple for people. I have everything at survivingthewaitingroom.co. In social media, the podcast is all Surviving the Waiting Room.
It's all
So,
the same. Okay.
yeah, please
Awesome.
feel free to reach out, DM me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. Is there any part of your story that you wanted to share that I didn't get to ask you about or that you wanted to mention?
Just real quick. So
Yes.
sometimes I've been hearing a lot lately because I am in the space and a lot of the people have younger kids and they worry about, am I sharing too much? And I can't speak to that, but I can say that in my social media, wherever I am, I do not share anything about my daughters.
Yeah.
I just recently got permission to say what conditions they have, and that's a first.
Yeah.
So I just say take the lead, and some days they might want you to, and some days they might not, and that's okay because that's their story.
Yes.
So we have an agreement in my house that I can tell my story, and I just don't tell their stories.
Right. I love that. I think that's a great way to do it. And they'll have their time and space to share their stories when they're ready.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Moira, for being here today. And I will see you all next week with a really cool 12-minute talk where we're going to talk about how to start a gratitude journal that you'll actually do, but with your child. Thank you for listening to the Child Life On Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life On Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/childlifeoncall, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.